Hello and welcome to the Daily News Analysis. I am Umang Khokhar and today I will be taking your DNA session. So very good evening to all of you. So before moving ahead, this is the Telegram group scanner. So you can join by scanning this QR code and you will have access to all the PDFs that are being discussed in the DNA session. This is the front page of today's newspaper. So we have a very important news, that is the cabinet is clearing the caste enumeration in the census. Okay, and it's 1st of May and 1st of May is celebrated as the International Labour Day. So this is a very important day and we should recognize and uplift the workers that are playing a very important role in the development of the society and this world, and we should ensure that we provide them justice not only on the basis of the work that they are doing. Okay, so that is the important thing that we should remember as future civil servants also who are aspiring to become. Then we have the information related to all the batches or the foundation batch and the optional courses that are being run in Tathastu ICS. So you have morning batch that has started from 19th April. Then we have the evening batch, then the philosophy optional program and the PSIR optional program. Okay, now let's come to the news or the topics that we are going to cover from the exam perspective. So the first topic, of course, very important, it was in the front line. We have the cabinet decides to include the caste count in the next census. Okay, then we have another important news that is talking about the digital access as a part of fundamental right to life and liberty. So it has expanded the Article 21, which says right to life and liberty. So we should ensure that digital access has become a part of this article only. Okay, then we have India's shame, the trap of bonded labor. So this article is talking about the bonded labor that is still prevalent in India. There are instances where we are finding the bonded labor are enrolled in factories, in industries, brick lanes. Okay, so we will understand about bonded labor because we already had an act that has abolished bonded labor in 1975. Only we brought that act, but still it is prevalent in India. Then we have, is natural hydrogen the fuel of the future? So they are talking about natural hydrogen. We have read about a lot about green hydrogen, grey hydrogen, but what is this natural hydrogen and what is India's potential in trapping or extracting this natural hydrogen? Then the last, from the prelims perspective, we have a small editorial that was talking about the Vembanad Lake. So that is important from the prelims perspective. So let's move ahead with the first article. So the first one is, the cabinet decides to include the caste count in the next census. So from the exam perspective, if we see, this becomes important in your GS2, polity and governance. So what is the cabinet saying? So this decision has been made that the Union Cabinet has announced inclusion of the caste enumeration in upcoming census, marking it as the first time in independent India that a full caste count will take place. That is what it is saying, first time in independent India. Isse pehle hua hai, but we will see when. Significant as the previous census exercises only included the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, because the previous one had included only these two particular castes, right? And the last census that happened, so in the last full census that happened, the full caste enumeration, it happened in 1931. 1931 में ही हुआ था, इससे पहले, and with only projections and estimates for the OBCs since then. Now why is it important? क्यों हमारे लिए important है caste enumeration करना? Because in a country where almost 50% of the population are belonging to the OBCs, this is the data from the NSSO 2006 and the Mandal Commission. So there is a policy vacuum that is happening in our country. there are a lot of schemes that are brought that are targeting the marginalized sections, and these schemes are not reaching them. So when we don't have the we don't have the data, we don't have the numbers of the people, then how can we ensure that that scheme is reaching the concerned person or not? So एक policy gap vacuum हमारी country में prevalent है, right? Then let's move ahead with some more points. So important points that are discussed in this article. Now this census will be done in a very digitalized manner. So what will be there in this will happen in the second and the final phase of the census. The caste enumeration will be done in the second and the final phase of the census. Along with that, it will be done digitally. There will be categories in a drop down manner. Okay, so there will be a box and there will be drop downs menus for that, or for the different castes that are there in a mobile application. What should be the expected benefits from this? We can expect that this will improve the identification of the marginalized groups that I was talking about. ठीक है, अगर हम उन्हें identify कर पाएंगे, उसके बाद ही हम उनको schemes के लिए include कर पाएंगे. That will promote the inclusion and that will help in better policy making. Okay, and the better targeted पॉलिसी रीचिंग ऑल्सो, मतलब वो पॉलिसी का जो मेन एम था, इट शुड रीच द कंसर्न्ड सेक्शन ऑफ द सोसाइटी, राइट? देन पॉलिटिकल एंड इलेक्टोरल इम्प्लीकेशंस. नाउ दिस इज नॉट, ऐसा तो है नहीं कि उसके इस चीज का करने से कोई इफेक्ट नहीं होगा. ऑफ कोर्स देयर विल बी इम्प्लीकेशंस at the political level also. So some are saying that it's a strategic move before the Bihar assembly elections that are happening. Okay, so that is what the opposition parties are saying. Then it is all, there are different political responses that have been resulted from this. Now Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and Home Minister Amit Shah highlighted the need for a caste census and criticized Congress for politicizing the issue in the past. Now let's not go into the politics of this, but we should understand that census is something that has been there, that has been in news, that has a big timeline. ठीक है, तो ऐसा नहीं कि सेंसस की कोई हिस्ट्री नहीं है इंडिया में. देयर इज अ हिस्ट्री. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन 800 BC द ऋग्वेद हैज एविडेंसेस ऑफ मेंटेनेंस ऑफ सम काइंड ऑफ अ पॉपुलेशन काउंट. उस टाइम से भी हम एक पॉपुलेशन काउंट मेंटेन कर रहे थे. देयर वर एविडेंस. सो वी कम टू ऋग्वेद. देन इन 300 BC कौटिल्या's अर्थशास्त्र is mentioning about the population statistics. 1590 N.A. Akbari also mentions about the data pertaining to population. Then we have 1865, a modern population census was carried out, but it was asynchronous. Okay, then it was happening at random places, random intervals. 1872 we had the first population census of India, including questions based on name, age, religion, caste. But it did not cover all the territories of the British that were possessed by the British. Then in 1881 we had the first synchronous census in India. First synchronous census, meaning it, and after that it has been happening every 10 years from that onwards. 1951 independent India published its first separate data on the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, but not other castes. दूसरी caste का data नहीं था उसमें. ठीक है. 2016 the SECC, the socio-economic caste census was conducted, but it was not made public in 2016. So that's a short timeline of the census in India. Now of course what would be the impact on political representation and welfare? Of course marginalized communities जो है, जो officially including them in the caste enumeration, government is aiming to better identify them, better cater them, and so that the welfare programs can reach those marginalized communities. That is the aim. Then opposition views we have seen. Okay, the politics that is going on, that's absolutely fine, but what we need to remember here is the SECC, the socio-economic caste census conducted in 2011, was criticized for being open-ended, lacking clarity, which led to a large number of caste names being recorded. Now this time what is different? इस बार different क्या हो रहा है? Different ये हो रहा है that we are trying to utilize technology. Okay, we are trying to have menus in a drop down manner, so it will ensure a better clarity and it will ensure that we don't commit logistical mistakes. हम mistakes ना commit करें. ठीक है. बिकॉज हुआ ये था कि जब ये वाला सेंसस, जब SECC हमने कंडक्ट करा था, तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस यादव्स, ओके, देयर वर डिफरेंट स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक्स दैट हैपेंड एंड इट लेड टू क्रिएशन ऑफ नंबर ऑफ सब कास्ट्स और कास्ट्स. Okay, so this time these things are being thought that we will try to remove these errors by using the latest use of technology. So this is what the article was talking all about. Okay, then this is some data related to the cost census only, so you can utilize this data in your means answer writing. Let's move ahead to the next article that is talking about the digital access part of fundamental right to life and liberty. So what has Supreme Court said? The Supreme Court has said in a judgment that inclusive and meaningful digital access is part of the fundamental right under Article 21, right to life and liberty. So under Article 21, right to life and liberty का basic aim ये नहीं है that it only needs to provide a good life, a healthy life, education, facilities. Not only this, but also the data, the digital access is also important in today's world. Now why this has come up in news? Because this ruling has been addressed by, specifically it is addressing the challenges that are faced by vulnerable groups, including the persons with disabilities who are facing lot of issues in accessing the digital platforms, know your customer processes that are there in accessing the digital platforms. For example, आधार वेरिफिकेशन होता है, पासपोर्ट ऑफिस के वेरिफिकेशन होते हैं, ठीक है, हमारी टेलीमेडिसिन के बहुत सारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं, राइट. इनफैक्ट द आरोग्य सेतु ऐप जो था उसमें भी देयर वर लॉट ऑफ इश्यूज, तो पीपल वर फाइंडिंग डिफिकल्टी, okay, in accessing these platforms. So especially the persons with disability. So we need to have an inclusive digital transformation. So we need to have an obligation to create an inclusive digital ecosystem that is not only serving the privileged section of the society but also the marginalized sections, ठीक है, and specifically the persons with differently abled or the persons with disability or persons who have been historically excluded by the society. Okay, so we need to include them as well. Then it's why this case has come up, because this case was this was brought in light because of an acid attack survivor. Name was Pragya Pasoon and Amar Jain, a visually challenged individual, because they both faced a lot of difficulty in completing their digital know your customer processes due to the lack of accessible technology. जो technology है that is not up to the level, up to that benchmark that can help the persons with disability to do their formalities, the know your customer formalities on the digital platforms. And these two people are not only fighting for themselves, but they are a voice for thousands and thousands of people who are differently abled. Okay, so this is what needs to be done, and these are the two people who have filed for it. Then the court has of course done some action on it. So court has done what? It has issued 20 directions to the government which are aiming to improve this KYC process. इस KYC process को improve करने के लिए 20 directions have been given, particularly disability or differently abled लोगों के according we can make the adjustments in the process. So directions have been given, okay, and this judgment has invoked the principle of substantive equality, calling for equitable access to digital ecosystems or digital systems, particularly the e-governance measures and welfare measures. And giving you an example of Estonia. Now Estonia, in Estonia, in fact, the persons who are differently abled, the elderly couple, elderly people, in fact, they all have digital ID proofs. Okay, so this is what we can learn from Estonia, that every individual is having a digital ID proof in Estonia. Okay, so they are lauded for their e-governance measures, so we can learn from them as well, right? Then coming to what are the important barriers अभी तक डिजिटल बैरियर्स क्या रहे हैं मार्जिनलाइज्ड सेक्शन के लिए? सबसे पहले जो हमारे पर्सन्स विद डिफरेंटली एबल्ड है या पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटी है, दे आर फेसिंग यूनिक बैरियर्स इन एक्सेसिंग दीज systems or these services because of inaccessible websites. There are certain websites that are there but they don't work properly. एक तो ये भी बहुत बड़ा problem है, they are not working properly, the application process is very slow. Then there are lack of assistive technologies. For example, a person who is visually impaired or has problem in hearing or in watching something or is not able to see things clearly, so we should have some digital mechanism which can help them in filling that form. Simple. So we are lacking the assistive technology that is there for doing these form submitting. Then a very important reason is that the mobile or the internet penetration in India. फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पर भी अगर हम देखें तो इंक्लूसिविटी बहुत कम है. हम रूरल इंडिया और अर्बन इंडिया के अंदर अगर डेटा देखें तो अप्रोक्सीमेटली 37% is the percentage is the penetration of internet in rural India compared to 65% in urban India. Now this is the data coming from the Internet and Mobile Association of India. Okay, so this data is coming from there. So it's almost 37% in rural India and almost 65% in urban India. So rural India is automatically facing a lot of challenge in the internet penetration, then the infrastructure development as well, then poor internet connectivity, and along with that, if it is available also, most of the sites, most of the platforms are English centric, so there is lack of regional language content. That is also a very important hurdle or very important barrier in the accessing the digital platforms. So regional languages mein content is not available. Okay, then coming to the need for inclusivity, of course we need to have, if we want to increase the social inclusion, we want to fulfill our sustainable development goals of inclusivity, we have to ensure that no section of the society is left behind, and also not only in healthcare, education and these sectors, but also in the digital sectors, because there are a lot of schemes of the government, also welfare programs of the government that are run through the digital platforms. अब हमारे सारे schemes जो हैं, in fact farmers के लिए जो भी schemes initiatives government लाती है, वो सारे के सारे जितने भी हमारे platforms हैं, उनके अंदर we have the usage of websites, we have the usage of online form fillings. ठीक है, प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना, बैंकिंग सिस्टम, हमारा सब कुछ अब बहुत ज्यादा इंटरनेट पे डिपेंडेंट है. ओके, इट इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन दी एक्सेस टू दीज वेबसाइट्स. सो वी हैव टू इंश्योर कि ये डिजिटल इंक्लूजन बहुत अच्छे से हो एंड इट इज रीचिंग ईच एंड एवरी सेक्शन ऑफ द सोसाइटी. देन coming to the next news or the article. So this was the article about India's shame, the trap of bonded labor. So we all know that May 1st is celebrated as the International Labour Day to honor the dignity of the work and the worker rights. But still there are millions of people who are trapped in bonded labor in India. Right? So this topic becomes important from your GS3 Indian society part, Indian economy part, and also in your Indian society part this topic becomes important, right? So bonded labor crisis in India. So bonded labor यानी बंधुआ मजदूरी जिसे हम कहते हैं, so it still continues to plague India with millions of workers being trapped in conditions resembling slavery, often exacerbated by social discrimination, poverty and lack of education. So who are the two people behind this? Here also they have given examples. So we have the example of Mukesh Adivasi and K. Thenomozi. These are the two people whose personal stories have been discussed in the article. So Mukesh Adivasi used to work in a brick kiln. So he was a bandhua mazdoor in the brick kiln, bonded labor in the brick kiln, and also K. Thenomozi was a agricultural bonded labor. They are living in very poor conditions. They have no work hours. They are working beyond their limits. Okay, without any facilities, without any habitable conditions. So And of course, along with that, they also face violence, inhumane conditions, and they are trapped in that cycle. Okay, now what are the root causes that bonded labor is still prevalent in India even after having the abolition of the bonded labor in 1975? We also have the Bonded Labor Act 1976 for this. Still अभी भी क्यों bonded labor इंडिया में देखा जाता है? Because there are certain reasons, social reasons भी हैं, for example poverty, then medical emergencies that are there. Okay, लोगों को कभी कभी मेडिकल इमरजेंसी आती है, then they require money. Okay, then dowries, food shortages, lack of access, stable employment. These are the major reasons because of which people tend or get attracted towards or start working in such conditions where they are living in a very inhumane conditions, अगर हम देखें तो, ठीक है. Then there are deeper systematic issues such as caste based discrimination. ऐसा भी है कि कास्ट बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की वजह से भी देयर आर सर्टेन पीपल हु आर वर्किंग एज बॉन्डेड लेबर ओनली, और सर्टेन कम्युनिटीज दैट आर वर्किंग एज बॉन्डेड लेबर. देन इलिटरेसी, लैक ऑफ एक्सेस टू इंफॉर्मेशन. उनको इंफॉर्मेशन ही नहीं पता, दे डोंट नो अबाउट देयर राइट्स, दे डोंट नो अबाउट द इंफॉर्मेशन दैट वी हैव एन एक्ट ऑल्सो दैट दे आर नॉट अलाउड टू वर्क बियॉन्ड अ पर्टिकुलर लिमिट. ओके, सो these are the reasons which are perpetuating this problem. वो इस प्रॉब्लम को और ज्यादा एग्रेवेट कर देते हैं. ठीक है, एम्प्लॉयर्स जो होते हैं वो एक्सप्लॉइट करते हैं वर्कर्स को. ऑफ कोर्स दे आर यूटिलाइजिंग देम. ठीक है, ऑफन यूजिंग द एडवांसेस और द लोन्स एज अ ट्रैप. वो उनको एडवांस दे देते हैं, लोन्स दे देते हैं, और वो उनको परमानेंटली दे कीप देम बॉन्डेड फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. राइट. Then of course the government has also taken lot of actions. ऐसा तो नहीं है that government is not taking actions, right? So India officially it has abolished in 1975 only bonded labor, but 2016 में government has launched a 15-year plan also to release and rehabilitate 1.84 crores bonded labor. But the reality check is that only 12,760 bonded laborers have been rehabilitated and rescued by 2021. So this is where we are lacking. So there are challenges in this rehabilitation as well. So the failure to meet the rescue targets has raised the questions about the feasibility of meeting the 2030 goal of eradicating bonded labor. We are aiming to eradicate it, but the reality check that we saw, the figures that we saw are not good. Okay, so when we talk about bonded labor, there is also a forced labor that is found in one particular sector of the economy, especially the informal sector. इंडिया के अंदर जो हमारा इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर है उसके अंदर आपको ज्यादा इंस्टेंसेस ऑफ फोर्स्ड लेबर दिखते हैं. ठीक है, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज इनफॉर्मल there are no formalities to be done, there are no documentation that is done. So this is where the forced labor or the bonded labor is happening at a larger scale. So in India, which employ the informal sector, which is employing almost 39 crore people or the workers, remain rife with the forced and the bonded labor conditions, because these workers have lack of job security, formal contracts, and are at the mercy of the employers. So the unorganized workers, जिसमें आते हैं हमारे migrants, they lack unionization, they don't have any unions. अगर unions नहीं है तो there is no one to take their issues up. Okay, कोई भी उनकी आवाज बात को आगे नहीं बढ़ाएगा. Okay, nobody is going to talk about their rights. Okay, so there is lack of unionization and collective bargaining. So this is where the informal sector is failing. Okay, then coming, and when we talk about informal sector, and in that also when we see the condition of women, that is more plightful. Now we also had the impact of the labor reforms. हमने labor reforms हम लेकर आए. ठीक है, the labor codes of 2019-2020, they have weakened the workers' rights. The codes have weakened the workers' rights by reducing the unionization. Because unionization reduce हो गया है, the unions की powers जो हैं वो कम हो गई हैं. So of course they can't raise their voice. They can't have lot of weightage or lot of platforms where they can put their things or issues in the light of the authorities. Okay, prioritizing the profit over the workers' welfare. Then the exploitation in the industries is further compounded by lack of adequate government intervention or the legal safeguards to protect the vulnerable sections. This is also one of the major reasons why it is happening. ठीक है, there are legal loopholes as well. Coming to the economic implications, अगर हम इंडिया की इकोनॉमी देखें तो यहाँ पर शुरुआत से ही, अगर हम एग्जाम्पल ले लें कि राजा महाराजा थे, उनके कुछ स्लेव्स होते थे, परमानेंटली दे वर बाउंड टू वर्क फॉर दोस किंग्स. सो दैट हैज बीन इन द इकोनॉमी, दैट हैज बीन इन द सिस्टम फ्रॉम अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम, वेयर वन पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन is dominating or it is exploiting the weaker section, right? So the Indian economy thrives on the exploitation of the most vulnerable populations, particularly the migrant workers, who often face unsafe working conditions, long hours and low pay. In fact, I would say that we see these instances in societies also, in the societies where people who are well educated, they misbehave with their maids, they misbehave with their domestic helpers who are making food for them, helpers who are upbringing their children. Okay, so उन लड़कियों के साथ, उन लेडीज के साथ, लेडीज ही इनफैक्ट हमारे जैसे लोग जो बहुत पढ़े लिखे हैं, दे आर मिसबिहेविंग विद देम, दे आर मेकिंग देम वर्क फॉर आवर्स, नॉट पेइंग देम प्रॉपरली, नॉट गिविंग देम प्रॉपर मील्स, discriminating with them, नीचे बैठो ऊपर बैठो. This is what is happening in the society, right? Then this system of exploitation is a stain on India's progress, with industries profiting from forced and bonded labor. It's only the industries that are, for example, there are crackers industry, हमने पढ़ा था cracker industries होती हैं, वहाँ पर bonded labor में बच्चों को employ करा जाता है. brick kilns में जो ईंट की भट्टियां होती हैं, उनमें भी बच्चों को employ करा जाता है. ठीक है, it's very easy to control them, dominate them, right? So the kids are employed in these factories or these unhygienic systems. So that's there about this article. Then coming to the next article, that is talking about the natural hydrogen. So natural hydrogen, the fuel of the future. Now every country is trying to decarbonize its economy. Everybody is talking about the emissions, everybody is trying to reduce the emissions, trying to achieve these sustainable development goals, right? So this brings in light the natural hydrogen. What is natural hydrogen? What is the history of its extraction? How is it extracted? So this topic becomes important from your GS paper 3, especially the environment and ecology, and it also becomes important for the upcoming prelims as well. Okay, green hydrogen, ग्रे हाइड्रोजन, इस पे क्वेश्चन पूछ चुका है यूपीएससी पहले भी. सो दिस टॉपिक बिकम्स इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर दोज appearing in 2025. So hydrogen is seen as a promising alternative because every country is trying to decarbonize, okay, and address the climate change. Now natural hydrogen could offer a clean and a better alternative to the fossil fuels that each one of us or the countries are using at present. So what is this natural hydrogen? Natural hydrogen को अगर हम समझे तो basically it's different from the green hydrogen that is utilizing the renewable energy sources or for extracting. Then we have the grey hydrogen as well. तो natural hydrogen जो है ये naturally occur कर रहा है, naturally ही ये हमारी geologic formations में it is found and it is extracted from there. So it is found naturally in the geological formations through processes like serpentinization. Now this becomes important. ये serpentinization का मतलब क्या है? It's basically a process whereby water is reacting with certain rocks in the earth crust. ठीक है? Then there is radiolysis. Radiolysis is when the splitting of water molecule is happening due to the natural radiation, and the organic matter decay that is happening at a greater depth. So these are the major sources from where natural hydrogen is being formed, right? Unlike the manufactured hydrogen, which is energy intensive and polluting, natural hydrogen is generated through the natural geological processes, and it can be tapped with minimal environmental costs. इसको extract करने का cost भी जो है that is minimal. Okay. Then History of natural hydrogen. So it has been known for decades, but it was often considered a geological curiosity, right? So after कैसे हुआ इसका extraction, तो 1987 में क्या हुआ, first time 1987 में when hydrogen was accidentally discovered in Mali, setting off the research. Then research happened and the reserves were extracted, were found. Then there have been recent discoveries in the areas with tectonic activities. For example, the Pyrenees, the Alps and the Himalayas. They are opening the new avenues where we can hit the natural hydrogen sources. Okay, so hydrogen excavation in regions में अब start हो गया है, right? The Pyrenees, the Alps and the Himalayas. ग्लोबल रिजर्व्स अगर हम देखें नेचुरल हाइड्रोजन के, सो 2023 में वी हैड फाउंड द डिस्कवरी ऑफ दीज नेचुरल हाइड्रोजन रिजर्व्स इन द लॉरेन रीजन. लॉरेन रीजन में वी फाउंड ऑफ फ्रांस अप्रोक्सीमेटली 92 मिलियन टन्स ऑफ हाइड्रोजन रिजर्व्स. पोटेंशियली इट वर्थ्स $92 billion. Okay, so this is what the potential of natural hydrogen is, and this is the diagram which is showing that fossil fuels are although still dominating the world's energy complex, but this is the area where we are seeing hydrogen. It's 2% here in the global primary energy supply, and in the global electricity supply it's 16%. So fossil fuels अभी भी major role play कर रहे हैं, but it's up to us how we are trying, how we are putting our efforts and technology to extract this natural hydrogen and put it to use. Then there are certain other points. Now coming to India as well. तो इंडिया के अंदर भी there are geological structures where we can find natural hydrogen. For example, the ultramafic or the mafic rocks in the Dharwar region. Okay, in the Dharwar region or Dharwar rocks we can find the natural hydrogen. The basaltic assemblages in the Deccan Trap. In the Deccan Trap we will find them. Okay, the ophiolite complexes in the Andaman Hills and the Himalayan regions. So these are the promising areas where India can tap its potential for the natural hydrogen, right? So let's see. Next point is global interest in natural hydrogen as well. So it is also talking that earlier, if we talk about in 2020, there were only 10 companies across the world that were doing work, or there were only 40 companies that were, there were only 10 companies that were having interest in this natural hydrogen. Now we have almost 40 plus companies that are working in this. So we have certain major corporations like the BP, Rio Tinto, Amazon's Climate Fund. These are all working to tap the natural hydrogens, right? So this is the area of potential for India as well and the world, because हम सबको अपना fossil fuel पे dependence reduce करना है, right? Coming to the extraction cost that I told you in the starting, the extraction cost also of this natural hydrogen is far lower compared to the green hydrogen, which uses the renewable energy sources. So it's approximately $1 per kg, right? Compared to the much higher cost of the green hydrogen. Then coming to the last topic for the day, that is important from the prelims perspective. So it is the Vembanad Lake. So Vembanad Lake, so this was the article that was talking. It is saying breathing back to life, breathing life into Vembanad. So it is talking about rejuvenating the lake that is critical for Kerala. It is not easy, but yes, it needs to be done. That is what this article was talking about. Right, so it is a 96.5 kilometer long water body. It spans through the districts of Alappuzha, Kottayam, Ernakulam, and it forms a very important part of the Vembanad coal wetland system. So we have to ensure, and there are 6 major rivers that are draining into this Vembanad lake. So it is a very important biodiverse region as well. Okay, from the ecosystem or the environment perspective, this is a very important area, right? Over the past years, this lake has shrunken in size due to the human induced interventions that have happened. Okay, so we have caused a lot of pollution, we have caused a lot of impact, harmful impact to this water body as well. So Vembanad is the largest lake in Kerala and the longest lake in India. It is also known as the Kayal, the Vembanad Kayal or Vembanad Kol or a Punnamada Lake in Kuttanad and Kochi Lake in Kochi. Different names. It is source of major rivers. Which are the major rivers? These are important from exam perspective. We have Meenachil, Achanakovil, Pampa, Manimala. It has its sources from in 4 rivers. So these 4 rivers are important from exam perspective. Then the very famous Nehru Trophy boat race that is happening here only every year in the month of August in the Vembanad Lake. So it is also known as Vallamkalli. इसे Vallamkalli भी कहते हैं. That is the Nehru Trophy boat race. In 2002 it was included in the list of wetlands of international importance as defined under the Ramsar Convention, and it's the second largest Ramsar site in India after the Sundarbans. So after the Great Sundarbans in West Bengal, it is the second largest Ramsar site. Then it also has a bird sanctuary, that is the Kumarakom Bird Sanctuary, which is located on the eastern coast of this Vembanad Lake. 2019 में एक Wellington Island है, that is a seaport located in the city of Kochi, was carved out of the Vembanad Lake. So this is the Vembanad Lake. You can have a look in the map, right? So this is all that is important from today's newspaper. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best, especially those who are appearing for the prelims 2025. Study well, keep revising. Thank you.